we've been conditioned to look at. Homelander as the end of the world. We watch his eyes glow red, and we see the inevitable heat death of the American dream. We see a God who is bored, a God who is needy, a God who is one bad, count away from glassing a continent. We treat him like an anomaly, a freak accident of science and ego that Vought is desperately trying to contain. But if Homelander is the explosion, Soldier Boy is the fuse. Here is the logic the system doesn't want you to calculate. Homelander isn't a person. He's a reaction. He is a frantic, desperate attempt to fix a mistake that was made 80 years ago in a Nazi scientist's basement. For 3 seasons, the boys have sold you a lie. They told you that Soldier Boy was a relic, a simpler brute from a manlier time, a Captain America parody who just happened to like cigars and assault. That is the lie Vought wants you to believe, because the truth is much more terrifying. Soldier Boy isn't a relic. He is an obsolete. He is the blueprint. He is the original logic gate through which every soup, every scandal, and every drop of Compound V must pass. To understand Soldier Boy is to understand that Vought didn't want to save democracy. They wanted to see if they could manufacture a version of liberty that would never ask for a raise and never, ever feel guilty. Soldier Boy didn't fail the American dream. He survived it. And now, he's back to show us that the dream was actually a nightmare we just haven't woken up from yet. Before he was the shield of liberty, he was just Ben, a rich kid from Southie with a father who looked at him and saw nothing but a hollow space where a man should be. This is the foundational logic of the soup. The power doesn't fill the hole. It just makes the hole bigger. When Frederick Vought defected to the Allies, he wasn't looking for the most moral candidate. He was looking for the most desperate one. He needed a subject who would treat the serum not as a gift, but as a correction. Ben didn't take Compound V to save the world. He took it to earn a nod of approval from a father who would never give it. This is the first core pillar of the blueprint. Insecurity weaponized into authority. Vought realized early on that if you give a man the power of God but the emotional maturity of a scorned child, you create a perfect asset. Why? Because that man will never stop trying to prove he belongs. He will follow every order, storm every beach, and crush every skull if it means the system keeps telling him he's the best. Soldier Boy wasn't a hero of the greatest generation. He was the first victim of the corporate generation. Look at the history. Vought sold the American public for 80 years. Soldier Boy at Omaha Beach. Soldier Boy storming the Reichstag. Soldier Boy, the square-jawed kid who took the V and became a god to save democracy. But look closer at the logic of those images. In Season 3, we learn reality. Soldier Boy wasn't at Omaha Beach for the first wave. He showed up for the photo op 2 weeks later. He wasn't a tactical asset. He was a brand asset. This is Vaught's first great discovery. The myth of the hero is more powerful than the hero himself. Soldier Boy taught Vought that you don't need a man who is good. You need a man who looks good in 35mm film. They learned that the public doesn't want the truth of war. They want the aesthetic of victory. Soldier Boy was the first iteration of the product. He proved that if you wrap violence in a flag, the public will not only excuse it, they will cheer for it. He set the precedent for the war on terror, for the war on drugs, and for every soup-led intervention that followed. The logic is simple. If the guy in the suit says we're winning, then the blood on the ground must be necessary. There is a fundamental difference between the old guard and the new breed. If we look at this through the lens of CineLogic, Soldier Boy is hardware. Homelander is software. Soldier Boy was built for an era of physical scarcity and industrial warfare. He is analog. He is heavy. He is dense. He belongs to a time when you could hide a body in the woods and it would stay hidden. His trauma is buried deep in the bedrock of his personality, covered by layers of bourbon and bravado. Homelander, on the other hand, was built for the era of the attention economy. He is digital. He is updated in real time based on polling data. He is a cloud-based entity that requires constant updates from his followers to function. Homelander is terrifying because he wants to be loved. Soldier Boy is terrifying because he doesn't care if you're even alive. This hardware/software distinction explains why they clash so violently. To Soldier Boy, Homelander is a pussy because he craves validation. To Homelander, Soldier Boy is a dinosaur because he doesn't understand the power of a like. But both are trapped in the same blueprint. They are both biological weapons trying to navigate a world that treats them like toys. The hardware is indestructible but inflexible. The software is powerful but unstable. Vought moved from hardware to software not because they wanted a better hero, but because they wanted a more controllable one. They realized that a hero who needs love is easier to lead than a hero who only needs a drink. To understand the blueprint, you have to look at the people it leaves behind. Mother's Milk MM isn't just a member of the boys. He is a living, breathing record of Soldier Boy's collateral damage. The story of his family, the car through the window, the casual, unrecorded death of civilians, is the most honest piece of Soldier Boy's biography. To Soldier Boy, that moment didn't exist. He didn't even register it as an event. Why? Because the blueprint dictates that anyone who isn't on the team is just part of the scenery. This is a logical endpoint of American exceptionalism weaponized by a corporation. If you are the hero, the world is your movie set. Everyone else is just an extra. Vought didn't just give Soldier Boy powers. They gave him ontological superiority. They made him believe that his reality was the only one that mattered. This is a ghost in the machine that haunts every soup. When A-Train runs through Robin, or when Homelander lasers a crowd, they are simply following the logic Soldier Boy established in the 1950s. The Mud People are irrelevant. Their deaths aren't tragedies. They are unfortunate statistics that can be wiped away with a settlement and a non-disclosure agreement. Why did Payback hand him over to the Russians? It wasn't just because he was a bully. It was because he was a logical conclusion of a system that rewards dominance and punishes weakness. Soldier Boy treated his teammates like equipment. He beat Gunpowder to harden him. He belittled the others to discipline them. He was practicing the exact same logic Vought practiced on him. He was a cycle of abuse that had been given the ability to punch through tank armor. But the betrayal in 1984 also reveals a shift in Vaught's corporate strategy. Soldier Boy was becoming too much. He was a 1940s solution to a 1980s problem. He was stubborn. He was aging, however slowly. And most importantly, he was starting to believe his own myth. He thought he was Vought. The system has no loyalty. The blueprint is designed to be iterative. Vought traded their greatest hero to the Russians for a chance to start over. They used Soldier Boy's DNA to create the improved model. They didn't just want a soup. They wanted a soup they could raise from a test tube. No parents. No sooty attitude. No pre-existing personality. Nicaragua wasn't defeat for Vought. It was a successful harvest. They traded the physical body of the blueprint to secure the genetic data for the future. We often talk about trauma as something that breaks a character. In Vaught's logic, trauma is a feature. Soldier Boy's 40 years in a Russian laboratory weren't just a period of imprisonment. They were a period of defragging. The Russians didn't just torture him. They updated him. They removed the last vestiges of his 1940s humanity and replaced it with a nuclear core. They took the blueprint and they updated the weaponry while keeping the original cold logic intact. When he emerges in Season 3, he is the universal solvent. He is the only thing that can dissolve the Vought mythos because he is the only thing that predates it. This is why his new power, the ability to fry the V out of someone's blood, is so symbolically significant. He is the only one who can undo what Frederick Vought did. He is the eraser. But because he is a creature of the blueprint, he doesn't use this power for liberation. He uses it for revenge. He doesn't want to free the soups. He wants to punish them for being disappointments. The most chilling realization in the Soldier Boy arc is his reflection in Billy Butcher. Butcher hates soups. He calls them cunts, bullies, and monsters. And yet, the moment he has a chance, he aligns himself with the original monster. Why? Because Butcher and Soldier Boy are fueled by the same fuel, vindictive logic. Butcher thinks he's using Soldier Boy as a tool, but the blueprint is infectious. By the end of Season 3, Butcher is sacrificing Huey's health and the team's trust for the sake of the mission. He is becoming the very thing he sought to destroy, a man who believes that the end justifies the means, no matter how many bodies pile up. Soldier Boy looks at Butcher and sees a kindred spirit, not because Butcher is a hero, but because Butcher is willing to be a hardware solution in a software world. They both represent the old way of doing things, violence, silence, and the refusal to blink. They are two dinosaurs fighting over a world that has already moved on to more subtle forms of cruelty. The final confrontation in Vought Tower is the moment the blueprint becomes self-aware. Homelander, the software, is literally begging for a father. He is vulnerable. He is human. He thinks that by finding his origin, he will find his purpose. He thinks the blueprint will love him. And Soldier Boy looks at him with genuine, unadulterated disgust. Why? Because of the hardware. The software's need for love is a corruption of the file. When Soldier Boy says, "I'm disappointed," he isn't talking about Homelander's morals. He's talking about Homelander's composition. He sees a man who could have been a god, but chose to be a celebrity. He sees a man who has all the power in the world, but still cares what the people in the mud think of him. To Soldier Boy, that isn't power. It's a leash. This is the most honest moment in the history of the show. It exposes a fundamental flaw in Vought's evolution. They tried to make a better Soldier Boy, but in giving him a heart, or at least a need for one, they made him weaker. Soldier Boy is the blueprint, because he represents the efficiency of apathy. He didn't need Vought's love. He didn't need the public's cheers. He just needed a target and a clear line of sight. So, what is the final logic of Soldier Boy? We spent decades looking for a hero who would save us. Vought gave us Soldier Boy. Then they gave us Homelander. And we are currently waiting for the next iteration, perhaps a new noir or a corporate starlight. But the lesson of the blueprint is this. The monster isn't the man. The monster is a requirement. The system requires a Soldier Boy because the system is built on the need for order without justice. It needs a man who will do the dirty work, while the cameras are turned off. It needs a symbol that can be marketed to children while the actual person is rotting in a brothel or a Russian lab. Soldier Boy wasn't a hero. He was the proof of concept. He proved that you could commodify the soul. He proved that you could turn a disappointed son into a national god to the power of chemistry and cinema. Homelander is just a glossy cover of the book Soldier Boy wrote. When we see Soldier Boy's cold blue eyes, we aren't looking at the past. We are looking at the raw, unpolished truth of the present. Power doesn't want to be your friend. It doesn't want to be your father. It wants your submission. Soldier Boy is the blueprint for a world where we stop asking, is this right? And started asking, is this useful? And as long as we keep asking the second question, the blueprint will keep being used. The names will change. The costumes will get brighter. The powers will get flashier. But the man behind the shield will always be the same. He will always be disappointed in us. And we will always be paying for his drinks. The ultimate takeaway from the tragedy of Soldier Boy is that evil doesn't always look like a villain. Sometimes it looks like a classic. It looks like tradition. It looks like the way things used to be. Vought didn't just manufacture a superhero. They manufactured a standard of power. They taught us that to be strong is to be heartless. To be a leader is to be a bully. To be a hero is to be a brand. Once you see the blueprint, you can't unsee it. You see it in the way Vought handles their PR. You see it in the way the Seven treat each other. You see it in the way the world treats the non-supers. Soldier Boy didn't just give us Homelander. He gave us a world that deserved Homelander. And that is the most logical and terrifying conclusion of all. If you made it this far, you're a part of the 1% who actually looks behind the shield. If you want more deep dives into the CineLogic of the characters that define our culture and the systems that build them, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Go down into the comments and let me know, is Soldier Boy truly a victim of time, or was he always the villain the world needed? And who do you think is the real blueprint of the modern world? Homelander's need for love, or Soldier Boy's cold, industrial apathy? We're CineLogic, and remember, the hero is a lie, but the logic is eternal. Thanks for watching.